It's day 3 of Kubernetes. Yesterday, we successfully built a Docker image and ran it in a single solitary pod. It was a huge first step, but today we're going to level up. We're going to learn how to manage our applications the right way in Kubernetes, which means understanding pods, replica sets, and the all-important deployments. Think of yesterday's pod as a single temporary employee. Today, we're building an entire team of permanent employees with a manager to handle them. So let's dive in. Hello, wonderful people. My name is Janelle, and thank you for going on this journey with me. Are you feeling a little lost in the world of tech? Cloud computing giving you the blues? Programming languages are all Greek to you? Artificial intelligence making you question your own intelligence? Well, you've made it to the right place. Welcome to 6 weeks later, where together we will master information, one focus sprint at a time. If you're over 40 and ready to understand the digital world, you're in the right place. And as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. First, let's quickly review the pod. A pod is the smallest deployable unit or smallest unit of work in Kubernetes. It's a wrapper around one or more containers that need to share resources. It gets its own IP address and storage. But here's the crucial point. Pods are ephemeral, which is a fancy word for temporary. If a pod crashes or the server it's on fails, that pod is gone for good. You can't just restart it. A new one has to be created. A non-working or broken pod is replaced instead of being fixed. So, how do we make sure our application doesn't just disappear? We use something to manage it. This brings us to the replica set. A replica set is like a supervisor. Its one job is to guarantee that a specific number of identical pods or replicas are running at all times. So if you tell a replica set, I want 3 copies of my application running, it will create 3 pods. If one of those pods crashes, the replica set immediately notices the count is now 2 and creates a new one to bring it back up to 3. This is Kubernetes' powerful self-healing in action. Now let's try this with our Hello World app from the homework. Replica sets are great for self-healing, but they're not so good at managing updates. If we wanted to deploy a new version of our app, it would start to get messy. This is why we use deployments, which we'll talk about next. A deployment is the most common and powerful way to manage your applications in Kubernetes. Think of it as a smart manager that sits on top of a replica set. A deployment's job is to make sure your application runs exactly how you want it to. It can handle your scaling, which means changing the number of replicas is simple. Your rolling updates, it can update your applications to a new version without any downtime. It brings new pods online before taking the old ones offline. And your rollbacks. If a new version has a bug, the deployment can instantly revert to a previous stable version. This is the object you'll be using for almost all of your applications. So let's create one for our homework project. Deployments. While pods are the fundamental building blocks, you now know that deployments are the essential tool for managing your applications. Provide the automation, self-healing, and zero downtime updates that make Kubernetes so powerful. Well, wonderful people, that concludes everything for day 3. I want to thank you so much for joining me. Be sure to like, subscribe, and sign up for notifications so that you can continue on this sprint with me. And tomorrow will be Kubernetes day 4.